just have a question about the process. I keep hearing you saying that you don't want any schools that are racially identifiable. And my question is, if the county is, for instance, 50-40-10, does it mean that you're trying to make sure that all schools represent that same composition of 50-40-10? And do you find that true in Beaufort County? We talked about how, well, Grant seems to be racially identifiable, but you find the same thing at Hilton Head High School. I mean, different schools have different compositions based on the population. I was just wondering how you determine when a school is racially identifiable, and that's not a good thing.
Generally?
Yeah, generally. As a general matter, we start by looking at the racial composition of the entire district. Then we look at the circumstances that may have led to the racial composition of any particular school district. If the racial composition is off to any sizable extent from the of a particular school is off to any sizable extent from the racial composition of the district, we ask why. And I'm making it very simple, but in order to try and explain it, if it's due to circumstances beyond the school board's control, then the school board isn't responsible for it. It's due to population shifts and zoning decisions made by the county or the city and not by the school board in terms of housing patterns and the like, then that we wouldn't hold the school district responsible for. If it's due to actions or decisions by the school district, even actions that took place many, many years ago that are continuing to have lingering effects, Mr. Washington used the word vestiges, then that is something that we would hold the school district responsible for addressing.
One of the things that, and I don't want to pick on our rural schools, but everyone always cites St. Helena. The fact is that when we entered the agreement with OCR, the voluntary agreement, that school was already racially identifiable, and the point was you don't move forward with creating new racially identifiable schools that you have control, that you can control. Am I stating that correctly or incorrectly?
Yeah, well, to some extent, unless, of course, the racial identifiability, the school was already racially identifiable because of the district's actions. As I said, when we got started here and in other school districts around the country, the whole reason why we have plans like this is because they were segregated by law, by state action. And if they were, as opposed to, say, a school district being able to show that a school was racially identifiable or segregated because, as I said, demographics of where the people live. So there is that distinction.
Ms. Andrea Kennedy?
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I have a question. And it's something that I'd like the OCR to work with the school board and the district on. In lieu of the 2010 census that we just had and the new lines that are being drawn because of the census, what you've heard tonight is that the Battle Creek cluster, because of Well Branch, there's a lot of, the Battle Creek cluster is now, has a lot of empty seats, and there's a lot of changing and moving around, and the attendance zone lines, in my personal opinion, have been, erased here and erased there and redrawn here and redrawn there. I asked the board and the Office of Civil Rights to please take a look at all of the attendance zones completely north of the Broad. Start fresh, do some, look at the 2010 census, use that as your basis to start with, because anyone who's involved and has been involved with the meetings and listened, we know that we have problems with other schools in the Beaufort High cluster that are at capacity or close to capacity or will be in the next couple of years. So instead of having to redo this again and again and again, I ask that we start fresh and we erase all the lines and we start over again so that all the schools are within that 55 to 60% and we don't have some schools with lots of empty seats and some schools that have no empty seats.
My original question was, keep hearing about the Battery Creek cluster and the Shell Creek cluster. My daughter goes to Okatee. I was going to ask how that fit in, but then I heard you make the comment that the decision has already been made and it's final. So I guess my question would be, why are we having this meeting?
The decision, I don't know what decision you speak of because
they're redistricting. Is the rezoning final? Is this?
Rose else than given that.
The rezoning is not final until OCR says it's final.
Well, my question is how Okatee fits into this, since I keep hearing about schools on the other side of the road.
Because the entire district comes under the voluntary agreement. Any change we make throughout the district, whether it's St. Helena or Hilton Head or Bluffton or Okatee or Wellbred, any change has to be approved. And we got in trouble a few years ago because of some things the district was doing and OCR did not know about it. So we came together and decided we will make sure that we are in full compliance. Anything else? Folks, this has been stated many times before, this is not an easy process. I know how difficult this is. I said at the Robert Smalls meeting, if I were you, if I had kids, I would probably be taking the same approach, or at least I would be fighting for my children, what I thought was in the best interest of my children. One of the things we need more of in this district are engaged parents. Now, I'm not necessarily in agreement with some of the things parents engage in, but believe me, we need, and I say this honestly, and I say it truthfully, we need more engaged parents, not those who just agree with you, because we do need to be challenged. That's the thing. But there's a way to go about the challenge. And my hope and desire is that the challenges will make us look for better answers and help us all look for better answers and better solutions that will make sure that all of our children receive the education they deserve. And every one of our schools is a quality school. That's the ultimate goal. Every school that we have should be a quality school that a child can receive a quality education. That's the goal. That's what their goal. That's the agreement. The problem comes in sometimes about how do we come together and create that. And it's not an overnight process. We've got 30% of our population that have children in schools, and then they want something and they're going to be in for a period of time. Then we happen to have a large retirement community that don't necessarily have children in school. We have a business community that wants to make sure, given our tax structure and the passing of Act 388 and the impact it's having on them, and a whole notion of school funding that has another impact. All of these different things we have to juggle. Plus, we do not have fiscal autonomy. No, Washington did not say he wanted fiscal autonomy tonight. But the fact, all of those different things and the relationships we have with different entities, we have to address. We cannot lose sight, and this board is unanimous in that we cannot lose sight in the fact that our primary role is to ensure that every child receives a quality education. That means that we have to have different approaches for different folks sometimes. Because what our experience has shown us is that some strategies that we used to apply or employ in some areas of our communities did not work in the past. And we had to take a different strategy. And that different strategy means, for some people, was interpreted as, well, you're doing more for them than you're doing for us. Sometimes we're just doing things differently, and we're trying to make sure that everyone gets what they need to be successful. But one of the underlying things that we have to have, and I plead with you on this, we need parental support or involvement. I'm speaking to the choir. I understand that. You are here. But we need you to help us get more parents involved, more parents engaged. And I'm going to make my little plug right now for one of those documents that were passed out, a call for early childhood education. Folks, if you don't start right, it's difficult to end right. And one of the deficits and one of the things that we have seen is that we have too many children coming into the school system, even at pre-kindergarten, who are not prepared to learn and have no idea the concept of learning and are not disciplined. And if you don't embrace learning, and if you are not disciplined, it is very difficult to learn and achieve. And when you do that, it means that we have to engage in other activities to do remedial work, and we should have smaller classes to deal with those who have issues.
but this year we were forced to move up to increase class size 1. We're going in the wrong direction. So what we're advocating is that, look, we need the state folks to help us to at least those resources that are already out there, do something to impact those kids who have not come to us yet, but we will receive, and we know we will receive because we are the only alternative for a good number of those children, particularly most of the at-risk kids and those families. So we need to make sure that we're getting better raw material. We're not like industry, or if you're in a steel plant or an iron plant, that you can just throw away defective raw material or iron ore to make steel. We can't do that. We have to accept everything that comes down the belt. So we're asking that we do a better job of preparing kids to come into our system. Now, some folks may see that as foreign, but I'm going to tell you, that's fundamental, folks. If we're going to accelerate learning and going to achieve at the rate given the resources we have. So that's one of the things that I'm begging you to talk to your legislative delegation members about. Doesn't cost one new penny to do that. Not one new penny is required to take that action. What it does call for is a will and the determination to work with us to make sure that our kids are better prepared when they come into us. Those are some of the things that we have to deal with. And that's just the reality of it. So, that's my little sneaky plug-in for that. I don't apologize for it, because folks, if we don't do it, I'm going to tell you, 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about, we need to have a pre-KK program. We got a kindergarten now, we started pre-K, then it's going to be pre-pre-K, and then it's going to be pre-pre-pre-K, and then we're going to go to the hospital, and we're going to take kids from their parents and say, that's the only way we're going to change things. We kind of laugh at that. Having been the director of the Department of Social Services for 27 years, there were some cases, some families, where we really had to consider removing, when certain parents got them pregnant, we had to consider removing those kids from that parent, given the history of the family. So, we kind of kid about that a little bit, but there's some seriousness in that. And we've got to get serious about public education. That's why I admire your fight, your spout, but let's try to find some common ground that we can make sure that we move the ball together. There is no need for us to be pulling apart. We've got to find that common ground. And that's what we're determined as a diverse board, because this board, as you know, we don't always agree with everything among each other. But as I said, the common thread is they believe, every one of us, I believe, believes in a good quality public education system. I honestly believe that.
I got to tell you, that's a great offense to which your whole statement. That you think that you can take a child from the minute that they're born and do a better job than the parent can. And if the board has unanimous consent with your feelings, then when election time comes, you all should be gone.
No, George, no, because I'm glad I taped this. I said I wanted to record this because that's not what I stated. So that's not a problem. I understand that.
It's not what you said, it's absolutely what you said.
Folks, I would love to thank you for coming out this evening. I appreciate your coming. I want to especially thank the people from Washington and Texas for coming and being with us. Any closing, I'd like to give both of you an opportunity to make closing remarks.
Very quickly, I want to thank you all again for coming out. We have not made any decisions yet. We've taken really good notes, and Martha and I will share our notes. We will consider all the comments that were made tonight as we go forward in reviewing the decisions made by the board. And we understand that the board is interested in getting some finality to these decisions so that parents know what to expect for the next school year, so we intend to move as quickly as we can. So So again, I just want to thank the board for inviting us to come down and hear your questions and concerns, and thank you for taking the time to share them with us.
This meeting, I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye, raise your hand. Thank you, we stand adjourned.